Welcome to Behind the SME, the podcast where we dive into the stories of founders, leaders, and visionaries of small and medium-sized enterprises. As the CEO of a small business myself, I want to uncover what drives the success of SMEs by talking to those who are in the trenches, building their businesses from the ground up. I hope you enjoy the episode. Tim, welcome.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good. It's a bit early on a Monday morning for me, but
Good. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us this morning. We really appreciate it. Obviously, you and I go back some 10 years now.
yes, at least.
Yeah.
We were both young men in those days.
I look back at the times we first met with with a bit of cringe, to be honest. Because,
thanks.
No, not from you. I did a talk at one of your trade shows, and I was a blubbering mess. And
I remember that one.
yeah, so do I. Actually, it was a bit of a stitch up. Do you know why?
No.
Because the slides didn't work.
Oh, sorry.
And there was no lectern. So I was holding my notes and shaking like a leaf in front of a room of people 20 plus years my senior. Very, very nervous. But you invited me back very graciously.
I did, yeah. You had to repair the damage.
Somehow. But there we are 10 years later. And you've got an incredible history within SMEs and within your trade association supporting SMEs. We also have a shared history in our formative years, which I want to get into a bit later.
Cool.
But for our audience that don't know you, why don't you give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour of, your career and your journey so far?
Yeah, well, we started in the same way, I think, being taught how to sell in a difficult circumstance, sort of knocking on doors. And if I look back to my university days, that's really what changed my future, I suppose. Learning how to sell in a very difficult environment, having to take 90% rejection. If you can do that, you can do pretty much anything. So, yeah, started, did a 4-year degree course, and during that time spent months and months knocking on doors, talking to thousands of people, and I thought that was my future. That direct sales and direct sales management would be what I wanted to do. But I had a phone call from my father saying, Tim, started a very small business, but we don't have a computer. Would you pop up and computerize the business for me? So he said he wanted to borrow me for 6 weeks. Well, that was a stitch up, because here I am 33 years later in the same business. So so came up to rural Shropshire, found this very small farm-based business, which really had nothing. It had 4 employees and was starting to make a few cardboard boxes. So I put a computer system in. Then I said, that was a sales order processing system. I said, really, you need production planning system as well. So I put that in. And once we'd done that, I said, you could do with some business, really. So can I go and sell some cardboard boxes? And knew nothing about cardboard, but just about every door we knocked on, we sold some packaging. And here we are 33 years later. My father's not with us any longer, unfortunately, but we now employ just short of 50 people and are seen as probably one of the better packaging companies in the UK. We've got a very good reputation. And somebody emailed me the other day saying you've gone from cow sheds to cardboard in a serious way in that period of time. And literally, we did clear out one of the farm buildings and start making cardboard boxes back in the day. Right. So it is a rags to riches story, I guess.
Yeah. And for those who don't know about the cardboard industry and your role in it, obviously, people will be very familiar with the type of packaging that arrives on their doorstep almost daily, it seems, nowadays. Tell us a little bit about Dairi-Pak and the type of work you do.
Yeah, Dairi-Pak's an unusual business because we started by doing the bits and pieces other people didn't want. We didn't really have a place in the marketplace. We were a new entrant. So we were buying cardboard that would, I guess you'd call it salvaged or QC failed cardboard, stuff that had been sent back because it wasn't quite right. We'd buy that up at a cheap price, and we'd fashion it into a cardboard box somehow. So we started from very, very humble beginnings, making the large, the small, the unusual, the bits and pieces that other people didn't want to make. We still retain that ability, but we've invested heavily in making high quality, high volume boxes as well for our clients. Our cardboard boxes are exactly the same as anyone else's. We can't do anything different, but what we can do is we can service people better. So we make a margin by really understanding our clients' problems and trying to solve those problems, whether that means stock holding and delivering next day, or devising or designing something that doesn't exist at the moment, or perhaps making something which doesn't make much commercial sense for us but solves the client's problem.
Sure.
So they remain very loyal, and we're very fortunate to have long-standing loyal customers.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to get into that as well and talk about longevity as a concept, because 33 years is a long time within a business, and clearly a priority of yours to look after companies and clients for the long term. And so, yeah, a couple of bits I want to talk about. There's a piece, I think, on your LinkedIn or somewhere on your socials where you describe Dairi-Pak as being fiercely independent.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I've always been a bit of a maverick. I've always liked to do things my way. I see similar traits in yourself. You know what's right. You want to do it a certain way, and you don't want to be playing second fiddle to somebody else or your destiny being determined by somebody else. So we are fiercely independent in where we want to go and what we want to do. But also I'm a great believer in a free market, that there has to be good, open and honest competition, lots of it. Then as an industry, we up our game because we have to work hard. So independence is important to our sector because sheep plants tend to be independently owned, either family owned or small startups. And I think there's a place for independence, and it's important that we nurture that. And that's really why I got involved with the Sheep Plant Association, because it's a trade association to help those independent companies to perhaps be as good in certain areas as the majors. I mean, a major group, the market leaders of our industry will have a head office, they'll have departments for HR, for finance, for marketing, and they'll have all those support structures. They'll probably have lawyers as well. A small company, we don't have those advantages. So to have a trade association which can offer that support, a bit of a head office function, to me is important because it means that we can compete, if we choose to, with the majors on almost an equal footing.
Yeah, yeah. So in layman's terms, independence means not having a shareholder, not having taken an investment at some point such that you get to control your own destiny?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I am the only shareholder of my main business, Dairi-Pak. That's only, it wasn't by design, that's by accident. You know, if I came across somebody who had my passion and wanted to join, then perhaps equity would be an option. But on the whole, most of the businesses that are involved in our sector, in the sheep plant sector, if they're privately owned, have one or two shareholders, and it's their family business, if you like. So being in control of their own destiny and their family's future is important.
And it must have been, you must have made a conscious decision early on to protect that independence, because over the course of 33 years, I can think of a number of different crises that came and went. There must have been points where you would have been tempted by just sharing that risk, filling the coffers a little bit and bring somebody in. And
yeah,
how have you protected that over the years?
There have been some very difficult times. I actually bought the rest of my family out and incorporated the business in 2006.
Good timing.
So it was terrible timing, of course, because the wheels fell off the economy, didn't they?
Yeah.
And, we were struggling. We really were struggling. We unfortunately had to let 12 people go to try and cut our costs. And even then, we couldn't break even. So it was a difficult time. And I remember saying to my wife, I'm going to have to diversify. I can't have all my eggs in one basket, because if we have another shock like this, Dairi-Pak will be gone. So it was a very, very difficult time. We've never really taken much investment. We might have borrowed a little bit of money to buy a machine, but we've never really been leveraged. So we've only really invested out of profit. So that means our growth has been steady, but fairly safe. We're very fortunate that we own the premises that Dairi-Pak operates from, and we have a small amount of farmland around it as well. So we have a degree of protection. But no, it was very, very difficult, and lots of people have offered to take Dairi-Pak on, but I owe it to my staff to keep it the way it is right now. And hopefully, when my girls are old enough, they might be interested in the packaging industry as well.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting stance, and your take on it is probably the most rational and well thought through take on the long journey being the one that you've chosen. People of I think the younger generation, call it age 25 through 35, see success in businesses, how much money they can raise and the speed at which they can reach an exit. And then I'm not sure, I think maybe sail off into the sunset. And it sounds like you have a compelling pitch for the long journey. And I'm interested in hearing what that pitch is.
That's really interesting because a lot of people build to sell. I'll be honest with you, 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I had a similar thought that we would build the profitability of Dairi-Pak, get 2 or 3 years good accounts, and then get it sold. Because I think I'd probably run out of energy, thought I'd done everything that I could for the business, and it was only making reasonable returns. But the strange thing is when you dress a business for sale and you work really, really hard at getting its accounts looking good, you end up with a business which actually becomes fun again and starts making reasonable money. So you dress it to sell and then you think, why am I selling this? Because we've got it to a point now where it's well managed, the systems are working well, it's light touch from my point of view, and it's actually making very good returns. Why would I sell it? So there has been a change of mindset over that 5-6 year period from, grow it to sell it, to no, let's nurture it now because it's in a great place.
And what do you think some of the benefits are for having spent 33 years at the same business? What is that longevity given you and given the company?
Well, I ache when I get out of bed in the morning. 33 years is a long time doing one thing, and it's quite unusual. I see quite a few resumes and CVs, and it's not unusual to have 12 positions, or prior positions. I've only had one. I knocked on doors selling aerial photographs, and I've done packaging. So I've only really done 2 jobs in my life. So continuity is important. I think because of my position in the trade association, what has been good for that length of time is people know who we are. They know who Dairi-Pak are, they know who I am, they see I'm not a threat, and they know that we're good, honest, honourable people. So that has been very, very helpful because people want to trade with you. It's still people to people. So that has been good. So I don't think the 33 years is that important in a number, but as far as exposure and people knowing who you are, it has been useful.
And what about in terms of your experience as the senior leader within your business? You must have seen almost everything, right? You've seen different profiles come through. You've seen different client behaviors, market shocks. Short of the pandemic, which might have been the first. But
yeah, we've seen a lot.
But do you think the business really benefits from having that thick skin and that more experienced person at the helm?
I don't know. That's probably a question for my staff. I do know that I've changed a lot over that time because when I joined, I was fresh out of university with a degree in business studies. I wanted to help my dad. It was as simple as that, to put a computer in, and then started selling. So I became a self-appointed sales executive, if you like, knocking on doors. And then I realized that we built the business to a stage where I couldn't look after all the customers myself. So I became a sales manager by default because I needed to employ someone to do the legwork. Then I became sales director to manage a team of salespeople. And then you eventually, if you're a sales-led business, there's a natural progression from sales director to managing director. And that's what happened. So yeah, I think we've always been a sales-led business. And I see a lot of companies that aren't. They'll go and buy a machine and try and fill it. Now, that's a production-led business. We will find out what our customers want and then equip our factory accordingly. So I think the strength in my tenure there has been that we've always been sales-led.
Yeah, okay. That's an interesting link. The link between the sales team that obviously at the coalface, they're interacting with clients and potential clients day in, day out, through to almost some strategic decisions. Tim, the business is going in this direction. They're wanting higher quality print. I think we need to invest in this direction. How do you ensure that communication is happening between those frontline staff and people making some of the bigger decisions?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a very small senior management team. I have myself and 3 other co-directors. We meet regularly, and the sales director is effectively our lead.
Right.
He's telling us what clients want and if we could do this, we would be able to gain that. So it's a give and take, but always sales led. And the nice thing is my financial director understands the beauty of sales. My operations director understands the beauty of sales, because every single job that runs through the factory has been sold.
Yeah, interesting. So we should explain a little bit about our shared experience. So you mentioned knocking on doors, selling aerial photos. I think the organization I worked at was a reincarnation of the organization you worked at. Some of the same names were touted around, although not involved when I was there. One of the things I always found interesting about being a leader of a business, having come from a sales background, is when we start thinking about potentially a diversified product or changing our terms or a brand kind of reevaluation, my immediate brain goes to how would this work if I was explaining this to a potential client or an existing client or a partner of ours. Because I've spent so long doing that over the years, I just go, how would I explain that? And just go into that narrative immediately. For me, I think it really helps some of the decisions that we make. Does it make sense from a sales perspective? Is that how you feel as well?
Yeah, I think probably what you're explaining and what I always refer back to is that sales methodology that we learnt about knocking on doors. It's about the psychology of selling, more so the psychology of buying now. But if you can explain to a total stranger on a doorstep, well, first of all, put them at ease that it's nothing you have to buy and it's something you might just like to have a look at, and then talk to them and answer questions and get your point of view across, your agenda across in a very non-threatening and inclusive way. If you can do that in every conversation in business, you've pretty much nailed it. Because I spend a lot of time selling ideas to my staff. They might come back with some objections. I answer the objections the way we would answer objections on the doorstep. So a lot of what we do in business communication is rooted in that original sales methodology that we learnt.
Yeah, and incredibly, a lot of the stuff I learnt has stood the test of time. I'm 18 years post doing the internship, but yeah, the concepts still get spoken about on a weekly basis. My team here talk about ratios, in the same way that we used to talk about ratios for ins and then shows and then signatures. We have the same conversation here. It's incredible how well they've stood up over the course of time.
I still train my salespeople using my sales manual from when I learned 35 years ago.
Wow.
I've adapted it to our industry. I've changed some of the terminology and put the bias more on the buying rather than the selling. But it's the same methodology. It's the same psychology. It nothing changes. It's as true today as it was back then, that it's all about people and it's all about communication.
Quite a large demographic of our listeners are people that are just interested in business generally, but maybe are studying or in the early part of their career. What skills do you think sales give you that last into the future? And I guess what's your pitch for those people that are considering an early stage or early part of their career within a sales role?
Well, I think it's important to say that sales is a learnt skill. Anybody can learn how to sell. Your own particular style will be dependent on your personality. I would suggest that if you want to get into sales, it's not shiny suits and the gift of the gab. It's more about the psychology and understanding of people and getting your ideas across. Sales is a great place to start. If you can do it, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't do it." If you're of a mind to do it, it'll give you a fantastic toolkit for the future. Because even a social situation, in many ways, could be likened to the cycle of selling. In that, if you want to go over and speak to someone who you sort of know of, well, do your homework first, do your pre-approach, find out who they are, get over and speak to them with some knowledge behind you, and talk to them about things that you have in common. This is just selling. So if you can learn how to sell, it'll help you in social situations, it'll help you in business, it'll help you throughout your life.
Have you got any memorable doorstep knocks?
I do.
Go on.
I don't know whether I can tell you them all. There was a gentleman who you and I know quite well. I'll name him, Stuart Lotherington. He was my lead trainer when I was learning how to sell. And he said, Tim, there'll be times when you just have a bad run of it. You knock on 50 doors and they're all slamming the door in your face. So he said, you've got to do a stupid demo once in a while, something that will, lighten your spirits and just lighten the day, and it'll give you a reset. So I had this wonderful idea that I would ring on the doorbell, I'd climb up onto the porch of the house, and when they open the door, there's no one there. But I would land and say, I've just taken this aerial photograph. I thought that would be really funny. So
Risky.
I rang the doorbell. I could hear someone clumping down the stairs. So I climbed as quickly as I could with my sales bag on my shoulder up onto the porch. And just as they opened the door, the whole porch came away from the house.
No.
And I was on their driveway with a porch on top of me, and they said, "Oh my God, are you all right? We've been meaning to fix that for months.
Oh
We're so
my-
sorry." They invited me in, gave me a cup of tea, and bought a photograph. So it broke the stalemate. So
Wow.
I don't recommend it,
Yeah.
but no, that was a memorable one.
Yeah. No, that's good. I had one less funny, more of a stuck in my mind. Similar, doing a bit of a reset. I was knocking with a friend of mine that was also on this program, and we decided we'd share the kind of intro bit. He'd do the first bit, I'd do the second bit. And this guy, I remember it so vividly, huge house, a couple of nice cars in the driveway, and you might remember this, and you kind of, when you knock on that type of house, you go, okay, got a bit of money, this should be this should be good. Anyway, the guy goes, look, I'm going to stop you there, guys. At the end of our initial kind of approach, and he goes, look, I've worked in sales my whole life. He points at me and he goes, you're far too selly. I just don't like your style at all. It's horrible, in fact, and I don't think you should say anything for the rest of this. I really like you, pointing to my friend. So you carry on. And my heart just dropped, and I'm thinking, where do I go from here?
Well, little did he know. Look at you now.
I know. It's amazing how you remember those things.
Yeah.
And actually, it was great feedback. I think I was pretending to be somebody that I wasn't. I was trying to be the sales version of Adam, whereas actually what he was saying, in quite a cruel way, was just be you.
Be more natural.
Yeah, be authentic to yourself.
It's interesting what you say about that. The realization that somebody doesn't actually like the way you do something. We spoke the other day about management styles, and I do remember one gentleman who I won't name because he probably will be watching this. I heard secondhand that he hated my management style. So I was running a team of salespeople knocking on doors, and I was very much push numbers. I want your stats. And I was the whip cracker because we had a mission. We had a 3-month mission to get a load of photographs sold. He really disliked my style of management. And that was quite a shock for me because that was early on in my career. I realized I wasn't universally liked. And that made me think that everyone's different. And you can't manage everyone the same way. You must adapt. You must try and mirror them in some way. So that was quite a lesson.
Yeah. Hey, look, that segues really nicely into coming back to talking a little bit about Dairi-Pak. And I want to talk about the culture of Dairi-Pak. Yeah. And you have a very relaxed demeanor. The company's been around for a long time. It has, from what I can see, some incredible stability. And I think, my understanding, there's some almost Dairi-Pak lifers. There's people that have been there for an incredibly long time. How do you describe the culture at your business?
It's a cliche, but it's a family business. It was started by my father. He and I worked together beautifully because his strengths were my weaknesses and vice versa. We were a great tag team in that respect. He's no longer with us, but the name is very much above the door still. Every time I go into a pub and I see the landlord's name above the door, I always think, well, my dad's name's above Dairi-Pak's door. So we have a responsibility not just to the existing staff, but also to the community that we're in. We're in a very rural community. We're in a village called Wrighton 11 Towns, which I think is the longest village in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. But we are in a rural environment. When we took the farm on, we employed one person. It was the stockman, John. He used to look after our cattle. We now employ 50, and some of those people, it's been their only job. I hand out certificates for 30 years or 35 years service. There are people in that business who've been there longer than me because they actually started before I did when my dad said, would you come along and help? So when we interview people, we always say, don't choose the job, don't choose the hourly rate, choose a company. Choose a company that you feel comfortable in because good people in a good company will go all the way. And if Dairi-Pak is successful, I believe everyone within that business should share in that success. So I think we're a good employer. I think we pay above the rate for our geographical area. And it is an opportunity for life. And people will go all the way.
I'm really interested in this topic because I remember reading about there being a choice when you run a business between running it like you would a family or running it like you do a sports team. In a family, if someone's a bit of a mess, you still love them, you look after them, and you don't exclude them. They're your family. Whereas in a sports team, if someone's a bit of a mess and they're not performing, guess what?
Yeah, they're out.
They're out. And there's obviously incredible strength in that safety that a family environment provides. And there's potentially higher performance in the sports team environment. How do you manage that family feel and yet maintain performance?
We fall wholly on the family side, but there is a caveat, which if there is a sour apple in the barrel, they have to go. We may take somebody on good faith and then realise that they're not right for the business for whatever reason, and sometimes we have to be very tough. But it's very important. It's a horrible analogy to use it like a cancer. But if there's somebody there who is wrecking it for everybody else and is toxic, they have to go. And we've probably over my 33 years involvement with Dairi-Pak, got rid of maybe half a dozen people that had all the capabilities, all the abilities, all the traits to do the right job, but for one reason or another just didn't do it. And it had a negative effect on the rest of the team. Once someone comes to you and says, I've got a problem with him or her, you're duty bound to investigate and find out why. And if you hear it more than once, there's a chance there's a problem. And, try and correct behaviours, but if the behaviour isn't correctable, then those people have to go for the wellness of the team.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm gathering is it's a family field that you will be very protective of.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So that's how you cover that off.
Yeah. And we've got a lot of great people in our business. Most of them have done multiple jobs within the business. So if you come in, I remember interviewing somebody for the receptionist job probably 10 years ago. And I said to her during the interview, you're far too good for just doing the receptionist job, which is fairly simple work. I don't think it's going to stretch you enough. Have you considered structural design? She'd never held a pencil in her life, never drawn anything, but said, no, I haven't. I said, well, would you like to try? And she has worked up from being our designer, and she's now out on the road selling from a technical perspective. So somebody who came for a very menial job is actually a key part of our sales team now.
Amazing. Yeah. You once told me that you run your business like a democracy. I'm interested in that. There'll be listeners that have a small business that's quite young. There'll be some which is a bit more mature and it's a bit larger. Is a democracy as a style of leadership right for businesses at every stage?
It's a really good question because I think that I've been involved with quite a lot of newcos. It's important that the creator of that business has a vision, and often they need followers. They need to be shown the path. So I think quite autocratic is the way to start most businesses. Once you get a head of steam and you start employing people better than you at what you want them to do, you have to listen to them. So that's when it becomes a democracy. And our business has been democratic probably for 15, 20 years. The senior management team will listen to the people who report to them, take the temperature, bring it to that senior meeting, and we discuss it. And I'm often outvoted. The nice thing about that is...
Do a physical vote, do you?
Oh, yeah.
So
sometimes we'll have to say...
and then you vote.
Yeah, I mean, we don't write, it's not a secret ballot or anything like that. But I'll just say, what do people think? And I'll always go with the majority. I rarely play the casting vote unless I feel very passionately about it. And I'll do my best to talk people round. But no, we go with the flow, what most people think. And the nice thing about that is if it goes terribly wrong, it's not my fault.
That's good. I'm interested in that room there where you've got a nice discussion going on, nice and fruity. People have got strong opinions. It's great, and I love those feelings. And There's a danger, I think, where you're the I think you MD or CEO, I can't remember the title. You're chairman, which
I'm MD at
MD.
Dairi-Pak.
Yeah,
Yes.
so your title carries more weight than others, perhaps. Your experience carries a bit more weight. Your shares carry more weight. Therefore, sometimes your opinion in that discussion can carry too much weight. And how you manage that, I've had it a couple of times in the past where I've said something, it's changed the course of a conversation. I wish I hadn't said anything.
Yeah.
Because maybe my opinion might carry an unnecessary amount of weight and it might be completely wrong.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that?
Yeah, and I try to introduce opportunities, threats, things that need a discussion without my opinion. I try and open it up first and hear other people's opinions, because that might colour my own opinion. So I always pitch in quite late with my opinion, and I think that's a trick that you learn over time, to test the temperature, to get other people's opinions first before you actually nuance your own preconceived ideas with what you've heard.
Yeah, interesting. I could definitely learn a little bit on that one, and there'll be no doubt a couple of people in my team that are nodding right now. But yeah, I think a bit more time needed for Adam on that one. Let's change tack slightly. You obviously you're involved. You mentioned that you wanted to diversify post the 2008 crisis, and I think you said take your eggs out of one basket and spread them out slightly. How have you done that? What have you got involved in?
Yeah, I think 11 years ago now, I had a phone call, and it was Tim. There are a few sheep plants who feel we're in a good place to set up a business which supplies us with our raw material. What do you think? And I said, well, the industry needs it. There's not enough competition in our supply chain. It would be good to have a strong, independent sheep feeder. That's somebody who makes the cardboard rather than converting the cardboard, which is what we do. So I went along to a meeting, not a million miles away from here, actually, in London. And there were, I think, 8 or 9 strong sheep plants in the room saying, what about group funding a corrugator so that we can actually make our corrugated sheep board? Now, to me, that seemed to make an awful lot of sense, because a lot of the pain we'd felt during the recession and thereafter was that we didn't feel we were buying our raw material at the right price. We thought that people further down the supply chain, either the paper makers or the board makers, were making more money than us humble sheep plants were, and that seemed unjust. It didn't feel like a free market. So that was the first thing that we did, that diversification, if you like. We went one stage back into our supply chain, and we started a company called Coreboard, which was to sort of free up the supply chain of our industry. Now, it worked brilliantly for the industry because it added capacity, it added competition, and that worked beautifully. Unfortunately, the very people that created that, the founders, if you like, had all the pains of running a newco. And my Lord, that was hard.
Really, yeah.
That really was hard. It's a business now that turns over just shy of £50 million, but you can imagine the financial pressure of growing something from nothing to something that size. It's been hard.
And I mean, I've been there a couple of times. You didn't mess around with the size of the site, with the bit of kit that you bought. I mean, I've been to a lot of packaging firms and warehouses over the time, some of the big guys, some of the smaller guys, and it's rare that I'm stunned, but just the sheer size of the building, it was extraordinary.
Yeah, it's 300,000 square feet, and it's a Goliath of a building.
Yeah,
but
the corrugator was a Goliath as well.
We probably didn't need a building quite that big, but it was a building that came up, and it just made sense. It was valued at X, it then became half X. We then got some grant funding. It was a no-brainer that it would be a very good investment, even in real estate alone. So yeah, it's a fantastic facility, and Coreboard have been through all the pain, but have now come out the other side, and they're a superb company. I'm very proud of what we've done. So that was the start of the diversification.
And you weren't put off after that?
No.
That challenge, you said, that's a bit of me, I'll carry on.
Well, the pain was so acute, I decided that diversification had to be outside our industry.
Right, okay.
So decided to go for something that wasn't paper related, because that was painful. I got a random phone call out of the blue saying, Tim, you may remember me. We spoke many years ago, and you said you wouldn't get wealthy working for someone else. And when you're ready, give me a call. So this guy called me out of the blue. I will mention him. Hi, Billy. And yeah, I said, take me to lunch and tell me what your plans are. He'd worked for a large company. He could see market opportunity, but could see an awful lot of things that weren't right. And he said, I think I can do it on my own. I think I can do better, but I don't have the wherewithal. I don't have the finances to set up on my own. I don't potentially have the skills to run the business myself. So yeah, we went into partnership together and started a company called Colander Technology, still running today, doing well. And that spawned into other aspects within IT and within tech. And yeah, so we've got several interests now in IT, which are totally unrelated. I'm technically terrible at what we're selling and what we're doing. However, the principles of running a business and the governance of a business and cash flow and selling, dare I say it, ideas and product are transferable.
Yeah.
And I can do the backroom stuff that these people perhaps don't have the experience to do, and they can specialize or spend all their time talking to clients.
Yeah. Yeah, it was going to be my next question is now that you've got more involved in different businesses, what principles transfer? But I guess maybe I'll change the question slightly because of your role as chair of the trade association, the principal trade association in your industry. And part of that trade association, you've not only got sheep plants, but there's also the supplier members as well, ourselves included,
Yeah.
consultants, advisors, accountants, lawyers, tech firms,
Yeah.
printing companies. There's a kind of a whole plethora of businesses in there. And you at the helm of the trade association see all sorts. I guess twofold. There'll be people in the industry, people listening that know that a trade association exists in their industry, but have consciously decided not to go and mix with them because why would they go and hang out with their competitors? They see them as competition, not friends. They'd rather just crack on in their own journey. What would you say to those people? What are some of the benefits of being in that room?
I think if you're a great company that's very successful, profit maximizing, you've got everything in place, a trade association probably has limited appeal. I think if you're a smaller company that's starting on the journey, or you've moved into the industry from somewhere else, a trade association can give you a lot of building blocks that you just don't have. You can network with all the suppliers to the industry for a start. You can hear what threats and opportunities there are to our sector, to our trade that are coming, and how we might, as a sector or individual businesses, handle those. So the backbone of the Sheep Plant Association is to find what those threats and opportunities are in the near future and try and identify the best practice to deal with them, and then give it to our members for no cost or at very low cost. That's kind of what we do. It's that sort of head office function as well, in that there are a lot of, we have a retained human resources lawyer, we have a retained contract lawyer, we have a retained health and safety specialist. We have a lot of professional services which are free of charge to our members. So if you're a smaller company or a less well-resourced company, you have all that at your elbow without any additional cost. So I would say to the smaller, to the growing companies that don't have these blocks in place, a good trade association is a great place to go.
Yeah.
But there are poor trade associations out there as well that just take a lot of money and have paid officers and seem to do very little. We're the opposite. We're all volunteers. We do it out of our own time, and it's to make a difference and to make the sector stronger. And it's almost to nurture that independence that I spoke about, that we don't have to be assimilated into a large group to get the things that we want. We can actually do it ourselves.
I remember coming early on, right? So I must have started coming to the SPA meetings when I was in my mid-20s, right? Really green in the grand scheme of things, maybe early 20s even, and being amazed at how open people were, sharing ideas, on paper, competitors. Yeah. But, I remember sitting down at a table with, two firms that geographically aren't even that far apart. And so in your industry, definitely competitors. But yeah, they openly talk about clients they work with. And I'm thinking, this is not how I thought business was going to be like. And certainly nowadays, we do about 1% of all the R&D claims in the industry. So, but that's that's a lot. It's plenty for us. Don't want to do probably 5%. We're quite comfortable growing that bit by bit. There's plenty of space for other people, is what I'm saying. And actually, success of the competition and learning from each other, it can be incredible.
It's very much an open book. Some people will be very, very private. They'll think that they're doing things better than others, or they don't want to share, or they have a latent distrust of others. I think any trade association, just have a look at the membership. If the membership tend to be what you consider good, honourable, ethical businesses, join. If it's full of all the rogues of your industry, stay away, I would suggest.
That's good advice.
It's it's a self-help group. And when things are tough in our industry, I use the analogy, we lick each other's wounds, we help each other. And when things are good, we congratulate each other and, and have a high time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of socializing, and some good friendships have been spawned out of just meeting 3 times a year, having a beer, having a chat.
Yeah.
We're very, very strict on the anti-competitive thing. We don't mention anything about commercial situations. It's not a trade association about collusion and collaboration and stuff like that. It's a trade association about identifying best practice and trying to give it to everyone.
And I mean, some people I've met at the SPA have become actual friends. I had dinner with someone from the SPA last week in London, and we don't work with them in any other capacity. It's just a mate of mine.
Yeah.
It stood the test of time. It's just someone I've got on with really well. I want to finish on one topic.
Yep.
I wrote a LinkedIn post earlier this year talking about goal setting and how I approach goal setting, and you commented the Tim Gray very simple method: have a goal, make a plan, stick to it, I think is what you said. I'm interested in what that looks like from a business context, how you create a goal for your team. Is it a revenue goal? Do you do it input based? Do you share that type of figure? How do you kind of tackle that topic, and how do you measure success?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm not a stereotypical goal setter, although I have set some pretty monumental goals in my life and achieved them. I can think of Stuart Lotherington, who is a fantastic goal setter. I mean, he's the king of goal setting. He will plan his year. And I don't know if you've received his Christmas card recently, but
I saw it come through, yeah.
When he does, he tells you what he's done every single month, and it mirrors the goals he'd set the year previous. So he is an ultimate goal setter. I'm not like that. I'm macro. I realized early on that if I wanted to make anything of Dairi-Pak, I needed to work extremely hard in the early years and sell, and build this business so it had a net worth and it was able to pay me what I wanted to earn. So I put sort of relationships and children and marriage and everything like that on the back burner and thought, at about 30, maybe I'll consider that. Well, that happened. We planned out. And then I realized the business was growing well, but it needed a lot of my time. So there really wasn't a time for me to be a father at the same time without the business struggling. So I decided to have children late. And fortunately, my wife agreed, and we played out that plan, so children came late. So the lovely thing about that is I'm quite light touch with Dairi-Pak now. It means I can take my children to school, I can collect them, I can take them to after-school clubs if I want to. So that's worked well. That was my own personal map, if you like, what I wanted for my work-life balance. When it comes down to business goals, that's where the democracy really plays out. Because it can't be my goal, it has to be the team's goal.
Yeah.
So we literally talk to everybody. We talk to production about what they feel they're capable of manufacturing. We talk to the salespeople on what every single client, what they think they will spend in the coming 12 months. So we build that budget or that plan up from the grassroots, and then it's everyone's plan. So it's not my plan, it's theirs. So that's how goal setting is set within the business. We involve everybody, and it's a collective buy-in to our journey.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, and it's a great way of doing it. I'm always intrigued by the reality of that, but I guess in this instance, I'm intrigued by. They obviously live in their world. Your production manager lives in his world. They can see what they're capable of, and the fact that machine's going to need a bit of downtime in March or a bit of work, and that person is underperforming and not sure if they're going to be here much longer. They live very much in their bubble. You live in a zone where you can see everybody's bubbles, but you can also, you're looking down the track and you're trying to pair everything that's going on within your business with potential economic headwinds and tailwinds and your own personal strategy, wrapping it all together and trying to keep everybody happy and alike must be a challenge.
Keeping everybody happy is almost impossible. But one thing about doing this collective goal setting, if you like, that everybody knows the mission. If we succeed in the mission, everybody benefits. So there isn't a single person in my business that isn't bonus related.
Yeah.
So if we achieve, they benefit. Even the cleaner. Hi, Annie. So the whole team is bought in. And it might be a sales target, it might be a profit target, it might be an on-time delivery in full target, but everybody will have a KPI within their sphere.
Sure.
And if they achieve, they get bonus. And likewise, if we fail as a team, if we struggle, everybody struggles. We share in the pain. We take that to quite a degree, in that if we manufacture any cardboard boxes which ultimately get rejected by the customer for a quality complaint or whatever, the very people that made those boxes pay.
Yikes.
It sounds harsh.
Yeah.
But they have a production bonus pot which builds over the month. If credit notes have to be given away, it comes out of their pot. So production pay for their mistakes. It sounds harsh, but it's very, very good. Our rate of non-compliance is 0.05%. So my maths isn't perfect, but it's something like 5 in 10,000 boxes are defective.
Right.
So that is tiny. And that's because if ever they're unsure whether the quality is good enough, they'll go and ask, because they don't want to be the guy that lets the rest down and reduces their bonus. So it seems harsh, but actually it's excellent. Everyone buys into it. And ultimately, they all go home with maximum bonus.
Yeah, super interesting. I love that concept. I feel like, we've managed to cover quite a lot of ground, and I'd love to keep going, but I guess we'll close up there and just have the opportunity to say thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and our audience, who really appreciate you coming on.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's been good to talk. Don't ask me to do it again, but it's been fun.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Behind the SME. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps others find the show. If you want to get in touch, you can find our email in the description. Until then, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.